There's a great picture for you folks. Bit different. I'm going to be using graphite, the Aquarelle Graphite pencils, so that'll be using some water with that, and also some watercolour pencils. It's going to be very, very interesting, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Now, we'll start, as I usually start off with, using an HB pencil out of the range, and then this is my planning stage. So what I'll do, I've already got a very faint trace there, so what I'll do is I'll draw that in a little bit more detail, and then we move on to the other pencils. We won't be using the watercolour just yet, and I'm going to use that in a very special way, not the usual way you think, so that's going to be interesting to see. Now let me show you how to set the drawing up. The line drawing and the reference picture can be downloaded from our website. I'll come back to that in a minute. I use this paper. Now this is our own paper that we produced, and it's a fantastic surface. 300 grams, as you can see, and it's a really, really nice smooth surface, perfect for the graphite aquarelle pencils and the watercolour pencils, and indeed watercolour. Okay, so that can be purchased from our website. Now, how about once you've got the picture sorted out, the paper sorted out, you can use any paper. I mean, I'm using my own, but you can use any paper. But the smooth papers are better for the graphite. Now, set this up, your line drawing, set it up onto your watercolour paper. Now, I'm also using what we call trace down. Now, this is a carbonised graphite, perfect for what we're using here, and you put it carbon side down between your paper and your line drawing. And then let me just draw this lady's hat. You just press through with a pencil. Now the pencil I'm using is an HB, so you can, I wouldn't suggest necessarily use the graphite one. I'd use another HB because the graphite's quite soft, but you want a harder pencil. Just do this for you, and then you'll see how this actually comes out. Okay, let's do the rest of it. I'm going to press fairly hard with this to do the transfer. However, because we've got it as a flap, you can just check it. That's perfect. But let's say it wasn't. Well, then you just put it back again and press again. But that's perfect. Now also what I do is I just go over the lines again. You don't have to do this, but it's a good idea. Just lightly so that you can see them. And then when you finish, you get a perfect transfer. Okay, so let's start the picture. Always start with the subject. In this case, this rather attractive young lady. Planning stage, if you've seen me do this before, is a stage where we just put the outline in really. There's no, and I won't do it all, I'll just do the first little bit. You can see how this works, and then I'll fill it in. I'll do the face particularly, that's hard. And this is just very unusual picture. There we are, that's, I think I'll have a little gap between there, actually, folks. I'm going to let me rubber. Little gap between here and here. That's it. Yes, I was saying, this is the plan, just the outline. That's the hair coming round there, and the little chin. And now we haven't got a lot of room for detail here, so I'll just leave it like that. It's all going to be graphite with just a hint of colour. Now the eyes are behind that bonnet. A very large hat she's got there. And also she's got a hair coming down here, and then we got a finger, sorry, not a thumb. fingers are disappearing into the hair like that. And we'll have a little bangle. I'm not sure quite yet how much I'm going to use the colour. Just make sure we've got that right. Yep. Just a little bit. Because it's a planning stage, we can change our mind. I can change my mind if I feel I want to do anything different. And HB pencil is great for this because you can get the detail in. However, when I move to the 2B, which will be the first area where we're going to be putting the detail in, and a little bit of shading. Now, I wasn't going to do this, but I'll just show you the finish of this. And we get a little bit of, I think I might have made that wrist just a little bit too wide. So we just thin it down just a touch. That's better. And coming round here. Yes, I was saying I wasn't not sure how much colour I'm going to put in yet. There we are now. I think that's all right. I think I might have the hair coming from there. Yeah, that's better. Right. So that's the first bit. Now I'll complete the rest of this in the same way, just going over the outlines, changing anything that I feel that I want to. And just to show you this bit, part of the bench. Now, I'm not turning mine round, but really you might well have to do that when you do your picture. And that's the back. Okay. So let me get on with filling this in. Now these here, this is a pattern on the dress, and I'm not going to worry too much because I'm going to be, this is where I am going to be using a little bit of colour just in there. But most of it is going to be graphite. But I want to be sure before I bring the other stronger colours in that I've got this planned correctly. That looks good so far. Need to finish it off. What I'll do, as I usually do, is show you little bits as I go, but I won't be narrating it, so you'll just be watching me filling it in. And you'll see little bits as we go along. Okay. made some advances there. What I'm using is a 2B pencil now. And it gives us the opportunity of bringing the first shading on there. You see I've left that area there, but I've left these light, darken that. We'll just darken inside there. Now just here I put a bit more pressure on there, but really I'd need to use the darker colours when they come to them. I'm in here, 2B, and if I turn it round now, this is when we need to make a little bit more impact with our drawing. You see the difference between the HB and the 2B. This is my drawing pencil. The HB is my planning pencil, and the 2B my drawing pencil. And also shading, but now I want to leave that light and those lights, so but this can't be as light as that because that's catching the light, so it's just a question of scale here, and that would be just a little darker, and when we bring the other pencils into play, that will give us more strength as we go along. Now, that's also going to be shaded. Leave that. That's going to be shaded. Okay. Now you're looking at that and thinking that's the same as that. Well, it isn't, because we're going to make that just a little darker because it's underneath. From there we can bring out the depth. Same with that one, we can make that just a little darker there. Okay, and as you go along you can do the same thing, and don't worry about those two at the moment. Let's just do this other leg here of the park bench. And just here you see that I haven't put a line there. The idea is that we'll be putting some bits and pieces in here, bits of grass and bits of whatever. There you go. Once again, that'll all be done later. Very unusual park bench this is why I chose it. A bit different, but challenging, sure, but very, very attractive. Now we come round there in a minute. Let's do this one while I'm on it. And then now this is where we got that's going to be shaded. Quite strong underneath there, but don't press hard because we've got three other pencils we can use to give us that depth. That's going to be light, but it will be shaded just under there. Good. Now let's put that in. And that would be shaded too. That would be light because it's hitting the light from the other side, and then we come into the dress. There you go. I think you can get an idea of how this is all going to work out now. I think that's absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm going to do the other. I'll do the other bit on the other side, and then we can start on the young lady. Now, the young lady, I'm not going to do the hat for the time being. Was what we're going to do here. We start off with the hair coming in. Don't make it solid because you'll need some light in the hair. Got it? Nose, the eyes, all you'll see is just not the eyes themselves, just a shading there, and then the lips, just an indication, chin, fingers, etc. I think what we'll do is we'll have her hair coming down and the fingers will be running through the hair. Makes it easy for us. There you go. That's the collar. Now we'll have some shading here as well. As we bring the darker colours into play, we can accentuate that. We don't want her finger to be we don't want it to be shaded. Good, that's fine. And we want some shading on the arm. There'll be more shading here because that will be hitting the light. Just to give you an idea of how strong that can be, under there we just put a little bit of the strongest colour, which is the 8. See that? Look at that. I don't really need to do that at the moment, but you can see now by putting that in how much of a difference that actually makes. Got it? So that's the darkest colour. So we'll be using a couple more before we get to that. Anyway, let me just finish off this for the young lady now, and again, you don't need to see me do it all. I think I don't need to make that a little lighter at the top. I've got a double-ended eraser here, which is useful. We'll have a little bit of shading here. Now that arm, we'll put a line in there, we can actually use it as a part of the shaded part of the arm. Get the idea? And here we can use the shading on the dress maybe. do the same thing again, make it a little darker there. Okay, let me carry on then, and you'll get the idea when I finish this how this is actually all going to pan out, because the next colour will be, or next tone of pencil will be the 4B, and then we can go over it again, making it just that little bit stronger in places. We're nearly finished. It's got this hand to finish off, and the area there, and that goes up like that. Okay, now that's the first pencil, that's the 2B. So we've got HB, the planning stage, 2B, the drawing stage. I'm not going to worry about any of this background at the moment, that's all going to be done at a later date. The most important thing is doing this. What about that, you said? Well, I'll show you. We're not going to do that yet. I'm going to wait just for a little while, because the next colour I'm going to be using is 4B. 4B is a little stronger, and we can go over it once again, making it just that little bit stronger. But we don't want to go over every part of it again. We just want to enhance what we've already done. So we make it just a little stronger here, there. Remembering we've got yet another pencil, or two pencils, that we can use. So that's making that a little darker. Okay, so that's what I shall do. You can leave that with me. And it's areas like this, you see, you just need to, even if you just draw it again, you're just making it just that little bit stronger. Got it? I'll just do this little bit for you. There you go. See how much nicer that's looking already? Now we'll just go down here and show you that. And there. The whole idea of this really is just to make it look a little bit more attractive. Okay, now just go in that bit. Let me show you there. I mean, I don't need to show you too much of this, because once you've seen a little bit done, you know how it needs to be put together. Just maybe cross-hatch that a little bit more there on the edge, just to make it a little stronger. And you can do, really, when you do your own, you can do anything you want there. It may well be that I'm going to put some shading in here in the end, but I don't want to do it just yet. I'll do this little bit here. You see how much better that looks, because we've just used different pencils for different effects. Got it? Look at the difference between that and what we've got there. So I'll continue with that. Finish it all round. I shall do the young lady again in the same way, and this is the third pencil, so we've got two more to coming. These two here, they'll all be put on to make it even stronger and deeper. But the 4B is the one we're using at the moment. Right, I've gone over all of them now. At least I think I have. I can't think of anything I've missed out on. So what I'm going to do now is to add a little more shading. Now, 4B is the first shading pencil, and it makes a big difference, as you will see. Now what I want to do now, again, I'll only do a little bit and then I'll advance it in the usual way. I want to make that just a little bit stronger, and same here. Now I don't want to make that too strong, but underneath there, you see, we can put a little bit more strength in. Now why this is working so well is the paper that I'm using. I'm using a really great paper, folks, and I highly recommend it. It's not a sketching paper, which you'd normally associate with pencil work. It's watercolour paper, but it's botanical watercolour paper, and it's a real cracker. And what it's doing, it gives you a softness, as you can see. So the pencils are going on really soft. You're also probably beginning to wonder, why haven't I done more with a hat? Well, if you've already seen the reference picture, which you certainly would have done by now, you'll notice that that's not graphite, and I'm going to show you how to do that. It's going to be quite spectacular. Now you see, I'm chatting away, but I'm hoping that you're following me on this. You see now, look at the subtle difference between that and what it was before. We've given it just a little bit of a lift. We can do the same thing with this under here. Now once again, this is a large area, and normally if you were using sketching paper, you'd have a bit of a problem getting this soft look, but with this paper it works brilliantly. Now watch this. It does take time, you've got to be patient with it, but look at the way that I'm doing that. You won't have to look over here, folks. You might wonder that you probably saw that in one corner. Well, I was experimenting with that, and that's what we're going to be doing all the way along this background. It's always best to do just a little bit of the picture if you're unsure. I mean, the most important bit was this bit. Now I can come in because I've got a sweep now. I can make that just a little bit stronger, but not much. And there's also, of course, another thing we haven't done is a shadow. We've got some shadows, but all in good time. Anyway, I'll just do this little bit. Now under there will be darker. I've got two other pencils, a 6B and an 8B. I may not need to use them, I don't know yet, because this 4B is doing what I wanted it to do. It's a little bit stronger up in there. This is where the 6B and the 8B might be better, because you don't want to press hard with this. You leave it to the next pencil to do the job for you. And in there, that will be darker. Now you see, it's going to be a long job, but what I'll do is I'll advance it as I did before in little sections, but what I'll also do is I'll bring you back in when we come to do the dress. Again, that's going to be a bit special. Make that darker. With pencil work, it's all about contrast. And it's so, these graphite pencils are, Aquarelle graphite pencils are so responsive. There you go, look at that. Great. Okay, well anyway, I'll continue with this now, doing the rest of the bench, and then we'll work on, just to show you though how, let me just show you one little bit, this lady's leg. What I'll be doing here is making it just a little darker on that side. Now once again, watch how many times I actually go over that, and then gradually ease it off as we come forward. And what happens is we get a shading, which is fantastic. A little bit of shading in here. Just one little thing, I've got a bit of fluffy edge there. Another great tool. If you haven't got one, You got the idea of that? That would also be dark here because we'll be shading. And also, I'm sure you've seen this already, this dress is sheer. In other words, you can see through it. So we're looking at, it's going up the other side and her leg over here. Don't make too much of it, but to make it look good. Anyway, let me continue. I'm going to now use the same pencil, 4B, to put some shading in. Be a little stronger there, and just under the elbow where you'll get the shading from the light. Now this is difficult because you've got to make it's got to shade it on the dress or the hand, and I think I prefer the dress here. Here it's going to have to be the hand. Now there we want just a little bit of shading on the arm there. And this is a difficult one. What do you do, the arm or the dress? Well, I think what we'll do here, we'll do the dress up to there. Now we won't be touching the dress again, except to put the colour on in a little while. So we want to make quite a good job of this. And there we haven't got a choice now. We've got to now use the arm. As you say, it's not a great deal. You don't have to go overboard. It's a pencil drawing. It's not really even meant to be a realistic picture. It's an impressionistic picture. So all we've got to do is make it look as attractive as we can. And that does look pretty good. Let's come down the other way. Anything like this, we can make it just a little more of it by putting a little bit more depth. That looks good. This one here, now this is difficult. We're going to have to make the shading on the arm here, but it can actually go on the dress on the other side of that, like that. Here we can use the bench. We can use the bench there to put some shading in. If you put shading in, you've got to bring it out a little bit. You can't just leave it, otherwise it'll look odd. So you then bring it into, grade it into the other areas, like that. Now that looks good. Now the bottom, what about this bit? Yeah. Now that bit can be, now we can do the same thing here, putting the shading on the bench. But we can't do it on the dress. So now what we've got to do here, we've got to put a little bit of, in here we'll have, certainly there'll be some shadow in there. And we'll have a little bit on the dress here. It just gives it a roundness. And then in here where we've got the creases, we can just bring the pencil above that. That looks good. As I say, I don't want to go overboard, but that's looking absolutely stunning now. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. Now the thing is, this is going to be a little darker, because this is actually on the bench. What it does at the moment, it looks as though it's a hole, or you're looking between it, but it's got to be represented like that. Okay, so that's all right. And another thing we're going to do now, and we can only really do it now, is we've got to put just a little bit of colouring on these light areas. Again, I'd use the 4B for this. And another one here. It's always best to wait. If you're patient, it works out in the end. Do I want any more? Not too bad, this isn't. I think I'll make it a little darker, perhaps at the top of that arm there. Just leave the light on the edge. And in here, well, no, I don't see anything like this. I really don't think I'd bother with, to be honest. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. That's done. Now, shadow. We've got some shadows. And the shadows are coming from here, coming from there. Continuing over here. Then we've got some shadow of the foot. And the other foot. Now this foot is swinging above. Now this we can be to be clever here. We can actually put the shadow like that. It's a little bit lighter there. Now that looks as though it's swinging off the ground, doesn't it? Maybe a little bit too far. Okay. And then this bench would also continue. Like that. Great. So that's got that. Now, what else are we going to do? Nothing, I think. As far as the lady is concerned, she is finished apart from the colour. Do I put the colour on now? No, I don't. So what we've got to do now is work our way along here. I obviously want to do something here, but I can't do that until I've got the background. So that's the bit I'm going to do. So let me show you how I did this. I kind of like that, but I think we'll just make that just a little differently there. Just rub it out, either with an ordinary eraser or it doesn't really matter how much you use there. But the idea is I wanted it to come up like that, and then come up and out. And then the same thing comes here. But that's going to have to be thicker, I think. Over like that. What do I think of that? That's unusual, isn't it? And then we can have even another one going off up there. Now what we do with this, folks, is we use the 4B pencil. And once again, the texture of the paper does the job for you. I'd use 4B for this. I wouldn't use anything stronger. And although I did draw it with 2B, I think we need the 4B because it's softer. Now you see how I'm creating almost a bark on the tree just by squiggling the pencil. That's what I did here. Is it too strong on that side? Yes, it is. So what we do is use our eraser just on that edge, just to take a little bit of it off. And we do that all the way along the line. Anyway, I'll just finish this one off. Right, now here you'll see, put it up a little bit, this is fainter. So what I did here is I just put, it's almost, it's still with the 4B pencil. And then a little bit of suggested foliage. Like that. Anyway, leave this to me. I'll do exactly what I did here, all the way along there, right to the end. And again, I'll bring you in every now and again. You can see how I'm getting on. But these really do have to be faint. Okay, we're getting on with this now. I'm not saying it's finished, but we're getting there. Now this is a pathway, this is the edge, and this will be quite light here. I don't want this to be too dark. I'm going to have it dark, even darker than that over there in a little while, but I want this area to be a little lighter. And again, using the same idea that we've done up there, only this time we're trying to represent some grasses. And I think I've done that quite well. When I bring the darker colours in a little while, we'll be able to bring a little more shadow in. But I think that's, for the moment, that's fine. So I'm going to leave it at that. Over here we got to do the same kind of idea. So that's again another long job. So leave me to have a little crack at this. And come back and I'll join you in narration once I've got the vast majority of this in. Nearly there now. It's a long old job this, and you've got to take your time at it. You can't just shade it in. As we get closer, we can be just a little bit more detailed. See that little bit there? That's rather attractive. Still using the 4B pencil. Suggesting. See, what we can do then is we can just put some here and there. We certainly don't want to do it all over. But you see, I've already put some in here, so because you're bound to get little bits of grass and so on around areas like that where the park keeper hasn't mowed. Some light as well there. Now most of the shadow that I put in there is gone, so we're going to have to redo that. And what I'm going to do now is bring in my 6B pencil. And this is much softer and much blacker, so we can now make things just that little bit more defined. Mainly the shadow is what I'm mainly concerned with here. Now she's got her shoe touching the ground there, but being raised here, so it would end up something like that. Again, we've got that bit with the shadow coming across there. Extending probably to about there. And she has got her foot off the ground here, so that will be, if we can leave that area there lighter, it suggests that the foot is off the ground. Got it? Great. Now I'm going to also carry on a little bit longer, because now with the 6B pencil we can make it just a little bit stronger in places. I'll do a little bit to show you what I'll be doing. What about that, you think? It looks like a iced over lake, doesn't it? Well, it won't do, but it's exactly the same as these areas. We've got to wait until such times as we can put another colour in, probably a 4B, or even a 2B might be. But now you see we can put just a little bit of extra strength in there. then we come to the trees. Let me just turn this round. We can now use 6B to add just a little bit more weight to it. Now I would have had to press quite hard with the 4B to get that in there, but I don't with the stronger tone, because it's softer. Anyway, you can see how that's working out really nicely. Once again, the paper is rewarding us here really well. Okay, so you can leave me to do that. I won't bother to bring you back in to show you that, because once you've seen it. But then we're going to do something really spectacular, folks. You're going to love the next bit, or love it or hate it on the other. And when you get to this stage, you could always leave this alone, because I think it's perfectly acceptable. But what I'm going to show you next is quite hard, but it will make all the difference to this picture. Anyway, let me finish this off first. Right, this is the 2B pencil. I think what I'm going to do is only use 2B here. And I'm going to put this very, very lightly on the path to stop the path from looking too foreign. And I'm using a regular stroke across the path. Give it slightly different texture to that of this. Don't have to worry about up there. Okay, and I think what we'll do here is just make it just a little stronger. I haven't put any well, I put 4B. I haven't put any of the dark colour on this back area because I didn't want it to, but I think we'll have to use it here. What's this? This is 8B. Now this is really strong, folks. So we can now put a little bit of 8B, and again I should put that in various spots to add a little bit more to the picture here. But what I really want to show you is this. Now I'm going to put some overhanging branches here. Now, this is going to be really, really tough. And as I said, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you feel in any way, but yes, it's scary, but you've got to do it if you want it to look really good here. Just do a few. I won't go overboard at the moment. I won't come down as far as that. I think I'll just leave it there. And this can vary too. You can sometimes you can dig in and make it darker. Other times you can leave them as they go on like that. But that looks great. Now I'm just going to turn it up the other way for a second to see how that actually is looking. Oh no, it's worth it. Now the problem we've got, if I carried on at the same rate that I'm doing now, you'll get them all individual. So what we've got to do is join them up a bit. We don't have to join them all. We can just join some of them up so they don't look, because that's what leaves would look like. That looks great, doesn't it? Let's put a few more in. In fact, I could do it this way. Really, it'd be easier for you to see it this way. And because we've got all those trees in the background, all light, we don't have to worry. The 8B will easily go over this. I don't really want to come down. I think I've gone far enough down here, so I don't want to come down any further than I have there. I'm not sure how much I'm going to cut off of that, if any, at the top. I want to make sure I've got them coming in. And the other thing you can do here is you can also weave a few branches, because leaves have to be attached to something. think that maybe that is enough. What do I think of that? That's great. I want just a few more. Peter out a bit, like that. Lovely. Happy with that. No need to do any more, I don't think. I think that's more than enough. Maybe just a couple more here. Just come down just a little bit further onto the grass. Not onto the grass, but on covering that area up. No, that's good. Great. Right, so that's more or less it. All I would suggest you do is with the 8B pencil, you can, what I'm going to do is just going to go over the edges again, just making it just a little crisper. Put a bit of texture in here as well, that would look good. These are wooden bench seats, and we can also make it just a little stronger. Now, you can always do this afterwards, so if you feel that your picture is, you've done enough, then leave it, because you can always return. Great. So now the interesting bit, folks. We're going to put some red on. You're not, I am. See, I haven't done too much with the hat. So I'm going to do the red of the hat like this. These are watercolour pencils, and I shall probably be putting them in with water on them. But we're going to put the red on. Start with. Now this red is 121 in the faber-castell. What I'm doing now is I'm just drawing this because I need to have some light in it as well. Now you might ask me, where did I get these pictures from? Well, the picture here I've made up of 2 or 3 pictures which I found on the internet. Not the lady. And the lady, folks, believe it or not, was, I saw her in a shop window in Canterbury. She wasn't a real lady, she was a dummy. You know, well, I can't have a dummy. So what I did, I took my camera out and took a picture of her. Now I'm going to fill some of this in, but I want to leave okay, that's great. Now before I move on to this next bit, I'm going to use the dark red, and this will give me some shading. Right, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my pencil eraser. This won't rub out. The red, I don't want to rub out the red, but it just rubs out the pencil marks which I've left in there. Okay, that's great. Now I'll now go over them because I want now to make them red, but I don't want them to be as red. Using the dark red. I didn't tell you what the number, that's 225. That should be a familiar colour to all my pastel pencil lovers, because we use 225 a lot to darken the reds. Now that looks great, doesn't it? Now the black is the final colour that we need, but we do need a little bit of black just to put a bit of punch in. Now although it will look black there, it will actually go into the red eventually, because we've got the shadow on this side. Doesn't that look good? Okay, well that's encouraged me, so let's do the rest of it. Now, oops, dear, Colin, concentrate. I just have to do a little bit more picking up on that now. No, I've got away with it. Yes, you will know by now, because you have seen the original finished picture, that whether or not I put red on here or whether I don't. If I don't, I'm going to use the pencils, the graphite pencils, to do it with. If I do, it'll be red. Now you know what I'm going to be doing, but I don't yet. Great, now that's the red. Now 225. I'm going to use the doesn't completely remove that, but it's enough. Five. And the black. Lovely. Just make sure I've got a good coverage on that. Now what I'm going to do now, folks, is I'm going to wet that using the watercolour. So before I do the dress, because that will tell me if I'm going to do the dress, and if I do the dress, am I going to do use water on it. Now folks, apart from the hat, I'm also going to be doing this and the bench. So I thought what I'd do to start off with, I will just see what these look like. This will give me an idea of how the bench is going to react. I already know what the hat's going to look like, because I've done quite a lot of watercolour pencil work. But this is great, and I bless the fact that I've got a watercolour paper here, because this watercolour paper is a 300 gram botanical watercolour paper. So it's designed for flowers. There we are, that looks good, doesn't it? So it's going to work very well on trees. I'm not sure what it does with park benches yet, I'll find out. But I have done some experimenting with it, and it looks absolutely gorgeous with normal watercolour work. So I've got a lot of confidence in it. And in a way we're painting, aren't we? That's what we're doing. Although I put the pencil on here, it's painting. So it gives you a nice introduction really into watercolour if you want to do it. There we are, I've done that, don't need to do any more. That is not going to stay quite as dark as that, it always lightens up. So what I'm going to do now is go away, have a cup of tea, come back and have a look at that again, because that will tell me then what this is going to come up like. Alright, I'm not going to do anything else, all of this area will be left. It's only the character. Character should be done, the bench should be done, and the hat will be done. And whether I put the red on here, I've got a feeling I'm going to do it. You'll know, and I don't yet. But I've got these little marks in here. But what do I do first? What I've got to do is the lady complete as she is now, let her dry off, then I put the red on top. You can't put the red because it's going to all merge into the graphite. Got it? Good. Okay, it's now time for the hat. That's the bulk of the hat done. I've just got these little tentacle bits. So what I'm going to do there, I'm going to have to find another brush, folks. It's a smaller brush now, otherwise I might have a problem with it. Ooh, tight. I don't want it to stray, you see, onto the rest of it. That looks as though I've got away with it though. A little bit more in here where I put the black. And you've got to remember that now that's going to have to dry off, folks, before I can do any of the other. I don't want it to run into each other. Just make sure I've got it absolutely right. It looks good at the moment, doesn't it? Right, oh, right on that edge though. Make it as smooth as I can there. It's this. I've got the problem I've got here is this little brush has got a little tip on it, and it's causing me. And that's all right. I've got it now. Okay. Oh, there we are. Leave it. I'll leave it to dry. Come back and then we'll do the remaining area of the. I'm not sure yet. I think I might even put some wet on that. I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll wait and see. But that's the next thing I'm going to be doing. Well, that's the hat all dry now. Now I'm going to start with the bench rather than the lady, because it will get me used to the way this is reacting. And what you do with this is you just lay the water on. You have to work fairly swiftly, because what we don't want to do is have all of that running into each other. Enough water on it to spread it. As I say, I'm not doing the lady at the moment. You can go over the whole thing because you can't spend time going over each individual bit. Right, that's it. Doesn't really matter how much water, although you don't want too much on it. Going very well at the moment, and so you get used to it. It's always best to do the areas that are going to give you an idea of what to do. You could always add more as well. Now I've got such these areas. I'm going to do these individually. Yes, you can always add more later. That works well. Do this one. And this in here. And again, I'm going to leave this to dry off before we attempt the lady. Right, now you see the difference between the two. Not far to go now. Now I'm using a number 6 brush. The reason I do that is because I want to get as much on the brush as I can, and number 6 is ideal. This is a sable brush, which means it's got a nice point on it, as you can see, so I can get into the very fine areas, tight areas like that. Oh, nearly there now. Now that's given me a lot of confidence because that's gone really well. Excuse me. So I'm going to let that dry off and then we'll do the lady. Now I've decided to do the shadow as well. I've done this under here. Just adds a little bit of extra depth. Leave a little bit of light there coming through. And that should be the end of that. Yep, great. Well, now all of that has meant that I now have the lady to sort out. And start off by dipping in. We can again go over the whole thing, but don't go back over it. Once you've left the area, don't go back. And again, you could do this in little sections. So there's the dress, for instance, and the hair done. Okay. And then you can do the arm. Other arm, the dress, and the remaining part of the dress. And finally, the legs and the feet. Now, we leave it all to dry again. But when we come back, folks, the decision will be, do I or do I not put these reds on? I think I'm going to have to do it. They look so good. That hat looks gorgeous, doesn't it? So, leave it to dry. Now, this looks so good, I've also decided to do the rest of this just up to that pathway, because this looks so good. And all you do is simply just use your brush to wet it all. There you go. Just a little bit in there. Well, finished. I don't want to do the other side. That gives us a better recession now. Right, everything's dry now. I'm going to add another colour to the equation. This is a light pink, because these are roses, or representative of roses. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a few on. To start with. Now, I'm not going to be really fussy. Just enough to give the effects that I want. There's the pink. I'll give you all these colours, but the actual colour is 130. That's the name on the pencil, but I'll give you all of these anyway later. Now the red. And the dark. There's 3 colours there I've used. Lovely. And I think we'll probably have a couple just on their own. Like that. That's it. That's all I want. Now I'll do the rest of it because we've got other areas. This is what all those little marks were about earlier on. One would be nice to come over the top of the knee, wouldn't it? And then just drop down. Now I'll show you all of these because there's not that many of them, and I'm going to restrict it anyway. Another one that comes out from there, and you can, when you do your own, you can put your own interpretation. As if you decide to do what I'm doing. It may be that you don't want to put this on. Well, that's fine. That's it. Don't think we'll bother with that there. Just one little bit that comes in from there. Yeah. As you can see, they don't resemble flowers at all. They're just really... What's going on here? I've got a squiggly bit there. Oh, that was probably one of the flowers, wasn't it? Yes. Well, I've got a foreign body on there. It's coming from behind the hand. Like that. And then that's... There's bound to be some folds in this, something I haven't actually thought about. But there's bound to be some. And we'll have some right on the bottom there. Move around the corner. A couple in here. I don't want to spoil the effect of that. I think, folks, I'm going to leave it at that. And that's the pink, now the red. And then, of course, we will also... Now, you don't want to go over the whole of the pink. It's just really putting it in so that we have complementary colours or strengths. So then I'm going to be using the watercolour, wetting it. But it's a lot of fun, I think you'll agree. Another dark one. That does make such a difference, that dark 225, doesn't it? Well, we're nearly there, folks. Lovely. Okay, now I'm going to get a tissue out, and I'm just going to dab them. Now, I don't want to do too much work here, just spot them, put the water on and leave them to do their own thing, and then we'll come back in a little while and have a look and see what they look like. You see, this is one brush load of water there, so it goes a long way. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this picture, and I hope you have too. But come back in a little while and see what that looks like. Well, there we are, folks. I think you'll agree that it looks pretty stunning. I hope you've enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I want to do more. I love the idea of combining just a little bit of colour to the Aquarelle Graphite. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye for now, folks.